Salutations to all my utopians global here with another great one. Today's topic is NBA free agency. Before we get into that, this is my 24/8 mentality sweater in collaborations with Champ Sports. If you like it, go ahead and get you one on globalutopia.org. Okay, so with that being said, let's get to this topic here. You know, one of my favorite conversations every year, because I've always been like a general manager in my own in the previous life. NBA free agency. And we got quite a few of them. And as I've mentioned a couple times in my videos, with the collective bargaining agreement restructure going on with salary cap, this list and moving forward and finding those bargains is going to be more crucial than ever. You know, as years past, everything has been about, you know, establishing big threes, sometimes big fours. Now with this cap happening, people are going to have to start really using their scouting department, looking overseas, finding second round prospects, utilizing the G League. We've seen a couple G Leaguers go in the first round this year. As that league begins to develop more, I guess it's what you consider the equivalent to the NBA farm system, similar to how they do in MLB. With that being said, there are some valuable names here who could be signed on modest contracts. We'll just go on we'll go in alphabetical order and try to find and go in that method. First and foremost, the Brooklyn Nets. Seth Curry, brother of Stephen Curry, is a free agent, and he had a very interesting first half of the year with the Sixers. You could tell he was emerging, he was coming into his own. Then the James Harden trade abruptly just changed everything. And the rest was history for him, unfortunately. But Curry is I think he's going to be in a status where he's going to be on a prove-it deal, but he's at the point in his career now where he's had his moments where it's clear, abundantly clear, he belongs, and he just needs to find the right situation. Maybe he could go back to Dallas. If they have any kind of apprehensive feelings about re-signing Kyrie, that would be a more economically efficient decision. If not, a team like, it all is going to be contingent on what his market value is. I can't wait to see, because these are the type of players that are going to let you know what the NBA is on. If guys are still getting paid lucrative money, knowing that this pending CBA restructuring agreement is about to happen, that'll be interesting, because he's one of the guys who if it's based on what you've done and then what your potential is, the potential meter is telling me that he's ready to burst in the right situation. And so regardless of role on a team, whether it's a six-man or starter. Moving along, Charlotte Hornets, Kelly Oubre Jr. He's had a roller coaster of a career, but he's still a very talented wing, and on any given night he can explode for however many points he would like. The key with him is just locking him in. I'd like to think with some maturity and bouncing around the league that it's going to be for him crucial that he finds the right situation, even if it's in a restricted role, just to show that he's a stable, solidified piece. Obviously we know what Charlotte did in the draft, and then Mikal Bridges is going to be returning, so it's going to get a little crowded in Charlotte, but that might be the move he ends up making. If not, I'm sure there's going to be some teams that'll come knocking at the door and inquiring. He might have to choose roll over money though this off season. The Bulls have two interesting prospects. One is Nikola Vucevic. He's a pure post big man in the league. He's shown to be an automatic 20 and 10, if not something close to that. There's definitely teams, especially now that the NBA is going back to the big man. I think 4 of the last 5 MVP award winners have been 6'11" or taller, and he's going to fit the theme of international talent. The Bulls would be inclined to re-sign him, but I don't know what the status is right now. They might go into a full rebuild. You keep hearing Zach LaVine's name being brought up. Lonzo has been injured to the point where we don't know if he'll play again. And DeRozan is another guy whose contract is fairly reasonable, and he might be looking to play in a more competitive environment. Derrick Jones Jr., 6'9" player, wiry, thin, but can jump out of the gym. Straight up athlete, long jumper, probably in the Olympics in the previous life, but it'll be interesting to see some team add him. He definitely could put some fans in the seats. Fast forward, Cavs. We're going to Caris LeVert. They just drafted Amani Bates, who I think everyone can consensusly agree he's going to possibly be a steal of the draft pick. I don't know how, sometimes players just slip on some fluke stuff, but he's going to Utah with a guy who already can command a double and triple team. 2 of them, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. So I think he might be looking for somewhere where just it's a little bit more clear what his role will be minutes wise and contribution wise. Uh, he definitely a couple years ago, coming off that campaign with D'Angelo Russell and his buddy who's there right now, and Jared Allen with Brooklyn Nets, had a very interesting run. He was looking very promising. Then he had some very, I believe, life-threatening illness, injuries, whatever it be. He took some time off, and he's now trying to, ingratiate himself back in the league. It'll be interesting to see where he might land. Maybe he goes to a team like Phoenix, comes off the bench and plays for a limited amount of money. It's another guy who he might set the market also, depending on, well, look, Caris LeVert signed for 1 year, $5 million. That's probably could be one of those things. Next team on the list, the Mavs. You got Christian Wood. This guy was doing nothing but ascending until he ran into Dallas, and now it's a little bit weird. We don't know if it was the Jason Kidd tutelage or just playing alongside Luka, which now there's been enough body of work to see that it's not easy to just, get him teammates, whether it be Dennis Smith Jr., then it's Porzingis, Kyrie last year didn't flow too smooth, and now you take Christian Woods, who's looking like he might need to go somewhere else too. This guy is a floor spacer. He's a little bit of a liability on defense, but in a league that values shooting and a guy who can grab some rebounds, 6'10", he's going to be ready for camp. He's not like he's ever showed up out of shape. He's a hungry guy. He's famous for his nosedive, cliff dive from his draft anticipated slot. He kind of slid really bad, and so I could see him, another guy. It'll be interesting. If he takes less money, he could set the market, but he definitely has something to contribute, and it's just important that he goes to a place where he can carve out a role more than anything and just prove he belongs in the league. I think he will get a little bit of leeway, just seeing how difficult it's been for for teammates to stay with the Mavericks historically, but he has to make sure his next move is his best move. The Nuggets and Reggie Jackson, it was in a way it was a Cinderella story. In another way, it was kind of sad. When Reggie Jackson originally was drafted by the Thunder, and whatever happened, he had a fall from grace moment. The Clippers signed him. He reemerged as a very gifted point guard in the league and a guy who was well respected. And at the trade deadline, he got shipped off to Denver, which he's a native from Colorado. He's a native Coloradonian, and if that's a word. And though he won a ring, he didn't really have much impact. So it tells me his market's going to have to reset. He, at the end of the day, was part of a championship contender, and a team that has championship aspirations may look at Reggie and say, hey, he's worth the roll of the dice, a 1 year, $2.5 million. Let's see what he can do. The Pistons, as the next team on my list, they got a Corey Joseph, and I don't know if many people remember it because he kind of going to Detroit can kind of get you forgotten about, but he was a piece with Greg Popovich that had a little role for himself during the yesteryears of the glory times that San Antonio Spurs had during Tim Duncan's era. He's a shifty dude. He can shoot. He can score from all three levels. Obviously, he's not going to be the player he was, but he's a great depth piece, a great third option, somebody who could step in at the 2 also a little bit, steal some minutes. Depending on what the number is, he can definitely find a roster spot where he can move the needle at different times in the season. The Warriors, and this is a very interesting one because they have quite a few of them. Obviously, we know Draymond, and that move is going to determine a lot. The acquisition of Chris Paul is letting me know that the Warriors are still very serious, and I firmly still believe in them and fear them. Andrew Wiggins is going to be back. And if Andrew Wiggins is getting 20 a night, 20 from Andrew Wiggins or 20 from Jordan Poole are two different kind of 20 points. No 20 points are created the same. And so if he's healthy and he's back in the lineup and he's locked in, the Warriors are as good as anyone. Obviously, they got some 5 questions at the 5 they're going to need to address. But this is a team that has just as much as chance as anybody. They have a puncher's chance like everybody else in the West that considers themselves a contender. JaMychal Green is a very versatile piece who started to emerge in the postseason. He's a versatile player, can space the floor a little bit, got a little bit of floor general to him as well. He's shown some signs of at least knowing where to go, when to go in terms of passing. DiVincenzo, He had a falling from grace in Milwaukee, fell victim to a numbers game, went to Golden State, went on a prove it deal. He proved it. He's going to be interesting because his future is looking very much bright. He's got some confidence to him now. I can see him doing some interviews on podcasts. He's a guy that, if he gets 30, 40 million, it's understandable. Obviously, he'll be expected to be the team's sixth man if he gets that kind of money. I think it would be a little too rich for my blood, seeing how he doesn't contribute as a natural point guard. But on a team with a LeBron or someone who can draw a double team and they just need a knockdown shooter, DiVincenzo can definitely be that guy. My word to the wise to DiVincenzo, take a little less money than 30 or 40, $50 million and, being greedy, trying to get the whole pot. Maybe a 5-year, $25 million deal, but guaranteeing that you'll still be in the league, and then who knows where things go from there. The Houston Rockets, and here's a guy who's been an afterthought, very talented player in college at University of Wisconsin, just for the simple fact that he's still a big body and he can kind of space the floor. Frank Kaminsky could show some value, and I think it'll be interesting to see where he may go as a quality depth piece. Quietly, guys like DeAndre Jordan, Andre Drummond, Thomas Bryant, they've all have a place in the league, and to me, Frank Kaminsky is no less. Next on my list, the LA Clippers. They got Mason Plumlee. Mason Plumlee has been around in this league. He takes great care of himself. He's a camp body that's always going to be ready. One of his underrated facets to his game is he's a great floor general. He can see the floor great as a big man. One of the better passers the league has had in the last 10 years, decade. And so they already lost Isaiah Hartenstein to the Knicks. I think he signed for about $28 million. They can't afford to lose this depth piece. They need him. He's a building block. I think he's considered a cornerstone piece. As I alluded to in my last video, not all cornerstone pieces have to be superstars or first option. A certified role player who you can count on is definitely a centerpiece, and I consider Mason Plumlee for the Clippers one of them. But it'll be interesting to see, who are his suitors, because he's also a veteran presence in the league. Now, the Memphis Grizzlies. And we know when you mention the Grizzlies, you got to mention Dillon Brooks. And obviously, they already have his replacement in Marcus Smart. They gave up to what I consider a king's ransom, giving up 2 first-round picks to get him. At the end of the day, Dillon Brooks is a guy who does the dirty work, and he does shoot threes. And so he's going to have a place in this league. I don't know who's going to pay him. I have a weird feeling that someone will pay top dollar to get him there just to be a veteran presence in the locker room, i.e., probably the Houston Rockets, something like that. Just they need somebody who's been there before. He can go to a young team or a veteran team for that matter and bring some physicality. Maybe he goes to San Antonio and protects Victor, until he gets launched in the league. So it'll be interesting to see what his suitors are looking like. The grit and grind, scrappy Miami Heat. Kevin Love, I think him as a backup, especially somewhere like the Lakers. I always felt like he belonged in LA. Or some team on the West Coast like that, SoCal, NorCal, whatever, but he belongs in California. It's got ties to California. You could see him anywhere. The Kings, he's a quality depth role piece who can space the floor, who's been through a lot of battles, and every team he seems to be on has emerged in the postseason as a threat and a dark horse threat. So Kevin Love is kind of like a good luck charm wherever he goes since he's left in Minnesota. He's many years removed from the player he was there, but he can definitely he has some qualities that are just highly valued in today's league, and he'll be a big time needle mover. Maybe perhaps he goes to Milwaukee and helps replace Bobby Porter, who I can see changing addresses potentially. Speaking of the Milwaukee Bucks, they got they got 3 of them on their list, four on my list. One, Chris Middleton, and I think maybe he might just be wanting to renegotiate a more long-term deal. But Chris Middleton, as you know, the biggest issue with him is availability. And that's an important skill set that we don't talk about enough. It doesn't matter how talented you are if you're not there. It doesn't matter. He's a gifted scorer. He's a 3-level scorer. One of the more lesser-known players in the league in terms of getting shine, because he's not a very loud player. But he definitely, his game is impactful when he's on the court. Giannis needs him. It'll be interesting to see what he does, though, because teams need scorers like this on the perimeter. And I could see Milwaukee going, the thing is, Milwaukee's going to be like, you've missed a lot of quality games for us. So it could be, some team like maybe a Houston that says, hey, we're going to overpay and get you up out of there at all costs. Next guy on my list, Brook Lopez. How many 7-footers do you know that can win Defensive Player of the Year and shoot above 40% from three and knock down their free throws at a consistent pace? That's Brook Lopez. To me, he's one of the most valuable pieces in free agency this offseason. Wherever he goes, it's going to make a world of difference, assuming that he doesn't just go completely chasing money. And he's going to end up going somewhere like an either LA team, a team like Golden State, somewhere that needs a five that can space the floor, and who doesn't? That is the premium need right now. There is not a team in the league that can't use a big man who can space the floor and rim protect. So he's going to be a very much a cornerstone piece wherever he goes. Joe Ingles, he's another guy teams want shooting, doesn't cost much, battled some injuries, definitely did his part with the Clippers, went to Milwaukee, had his moments. It'll be interesting. Jay Crowder's another guy, 3-and-D guy. Yeah, he's slowing down a bit. Reports coming out of Phoenix, Monty Williams wanting to leave the Suns because of him and Ayton being uncoachable supposedly. I don't know. I can't. I'm not in that locker room to say that it's Bible, but moving forward, wherever he goes, he's going to be wanted and needed. And that service he brings, a perimeter lockdown defender who can shoot the three. He can guard one. He can guard 1, 2, 3s, and 4s. So it'll be interesting. Meyers Leonard, another one. Just for the simple fact he's 7 feet. He's in great shape. He can shoot from the midi and the 3-point line. I'm not sure why he didn't get more minutes. Well, I know why. He got. He was signed randomly last year, but it'll be interesting to see if he can get into some contenders rotation. If you can go sign it Andre Drummond or DeAndre Jordan, I don't see why they don't go get Meyers Leonard. Whatever he did in the past is in the past. Oklahoma City Thunder got Dario Saric. He's a 6'9" face-up power forward. He shoots the 3 ball as a spot-up shooter. Every team could use one. He's another guy who I think could be on a budget-friendly deal and a quality third-option depth piece. Let's go to the Orlando Magic. Mo Wagner, 6'10", hasn't done a lot of winning, so it's going to be very difficult for him to command a serious bag. But for what he does, he's 6'10", he can shoot, and so that's going to be valued. He's relatively young. He's still in his mid-20s, early 20s, something like that. So Mo Wagner is going to be an interesting piece in Orlando. For that matter, we can go on to the next. Philadelphia 76ers. Now, last year in the playoffs, Joel Embiid went down, and they had a guy by the name of Paul Reed who emerged. They won that game. It was around the time when the NBA had announced that Joel Embiid was going to be MVP, and Paul Reed had a great game for them. I could see him going somewhere and getting an opportunity to, a team taking a risk on him. We see it a lot. James Jones, I remember many years ago on the Knicks, had one great playoff series and got a multi-year deal. I know times have changed, but that guy is an interesting. When players have, when big men have, a good playoff series or a good playoff game, it raises eyebrows. He's still really young. So Montrezl Harrell, another guy, he's made a career off playing off the bench, high energy guy. It took him a while to get signed last year. I don't know if it'll be the same amount of time this year, but he's definitely, I'm sure, will garner some interest. The Blazers, Phoenix Suns, Terrence Ross, with Bradley Beal now, with Torrey Craig being a free agent, but he's there. Cam Payne, Devin Booker. Terrence Ross is okay. He's not to be confused as an 82-game starting shooting guard, but he's done enough in this league where he could be used on someone's bench. He knows he's not going to get a lot of minutes backing up one of those guys. I could see him going somewhere on a budget-friendly deal to just reestablish himself in the NBA. In Orlando, every trade deadline, he was highly coveted and flirted with being the 6th man of the year on multiple occasions. So, ultra-athletic guard, can shoot the 3 ball. He's got a place in this league. And I just think he'll have to, take a massive pay cut to reestablish his value in the league on a prove-it deal. The Blazers, our next Portland Trail Blazers, Jeremy Grant. He's a needle mover because that's a guy who knows how to play without the ball. And so when you have someone who's low maintenance like that and can be effective and knows in terms of just knowing how to move without the ball going, he understands the concept of backdoor cuts, V cuts, putbacks. He can guard anything from the 4 to the 1. sometimes, and even on some fives. He's a very versatile guy. You don't know much about him. Watch what he did for Denver before he left. That was my favorite time of watching him. And I think now what makes him so dangerous is he got the idea of what it's like to be the alpha one on a team. Didn't win much. He got his money. He's going to get some more money, maybe not starters money like he did last free agency, but he's a guy who now is at peace and he kind of knows his high and low range in terms of value in this league. If he can go somewhere and play that six-man role and be okay with it, like, dance between the 3 and the 4 spot, he can definitely be a needle mover and be a name that's being mentioned a lot in the postseason next year. So keep an eye out for him. Okay, Sacramento Kings. They built a wonderful culture over there. They had a great Cinderella story last year, the darlings of the NBA, and now you got two marquee free agents, Harrison Barnes, Trey Lyles. I don't see either one of them going anywhere. Trey kind of stepped up and was a little bit of an enforcer last year for Sacramento. Harrison Barnes is Harrison Barnes. He has championship experience from his golden years with the Warriors. I don't see them letting those guys go. At the same time, who knows? Maybe they swap out Barnes for Chris Middleton. Who knows? But at this very moment, I don't see the Sacramento Kings rattling too much of their culture for anything. But anything is possible. I see them getting re-signed. But if he does become a free agent, there won't be a shortage of suitors. He's a consummate professional. A team like Memphis would love to have a guy like that in the locker room to continue to follow the theme of solidifying the locker room. The Toronto Raptors, who seem like they're going through a fire sale right now, they got two marquee names that stuck out to me. One, they acquired this guy at the trade deadline. He's a player option, Jake Potel. He's a back to the basket kind of big. I could definitely see him as the league is now going back to traditional traditional fives. Him being a 7-footer, you're going to need 6 fouls to throw at Jokic. You're going to need 6 fouls to throw at guys like Joel Embiid. So he definitely has a place in this league. Seeing that Toronto's kind of in this process of trying to reaffirm their identity and reestablish their identity, been seeing a lot of, they got a new coach, and I've been seeing a lot of trade rumors. Pascal Siakam could be nothing, could be everything, is on the block as well. Now here's another key marquee free agent, very interesting player who's up there with the Jeremy Grants and the Seth Currys and the Nikola Vucevic. Fred VanVleet. Don't get me wrong, Toronto could give him an offer he can't refuse, but he's a guy who kind of he's like the modern day Mike Bibby. He's down the stretch. He's a big time flamethrower. He can shoot threes from quite a distance, and he's played in some big time games, and he understands how to play multiple roles. He was a 6th man on that championship team. He's been a starter the last couple years. That's a very extremely valuable trait to have on your resume, or a flex to have on your resume. There's some teams that definitely can use him. We keep hearing the Lakers talking about, Kyrie, D'Angelo Russell. We're hearing all these different names. Fred VanVleet is definitely a guy who has to be taken into consideration. And if the Miami Heat love what Kyle Lowry meant to the team, they will definitely appreciate what VanVleet is. If he, you could see maybe Boston go after him. I don't see him going to another Eastern Conference team, but the Lakers could definitely use someone like this, and maybe they delay the signing of Austin Reeves and Roy Hachimura to get him. He's the perfect complement to what they kind of need right now with the Lakers. The Utah Jazz, and to me, this guy, I just gave you guys 2 back-to-back marquee names who can pivot the league and really change the odds in Vegas. The next guy on the list, I know everyone wants to talk out of Utah, Jordan Clarkson. Where is he going to go? Where he's going? And he's definitely matured. This guy has been in the league for some time, and he's evolving into his highest self. He looked horrible with the Cavs and LeBron in the playoffs, but now he's here fully matured, had time with Donovan Mitchell. I think he was pretty much the third option with Bogdanovich and Mitchell in that team that was back-to-back years in first place with Quinn Snyder. With that being said, the guy who I really value on this team that is going to be interesting is Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay is one of this generation's top 10 greatest scorers. There wasn't a style he couldn't get. 6'8", 240. In the Olympics, he played a little power forward for the USA team. But this guy, he's just a step below Melo in terms of there isn't a way he can't score. He's from that lineage, that Melo, that T-Mac. He can get it any kind of way. He can give you buckets any way he wants. his career has been decimated with injuries, and it's kind of ruined his momentum. He hasn't gone necessarily to some of the most richest franchises, but this is his one chance to really go on a team, come up off the bench, and really, a team like Golden State could really use a guy like this to get them back to their, to be their new Iguodala, so to speak. He goes to the right situation. I'm telling you, the league is going to be like, man, they're going to go to YouTube and watch his old videos and see how he's his significance in the league. Last but not least, and I don't really consider this a marquee name, but it's interesting to me still nonetheless. Kyle Kuzma, he made this for the Wizards. First of all, we heard about all the big time moves they've made this season. They got Tyus Jones, they got Jordan Poole, and Jonathan Davis is the backup there. They got they just moved off Porzingis. Does Kyle Kuzma re-sign with Jordan Poole there and form a great tandem, or does he go somewhere? I don't see him going to a big market or a championship contender, getting paid and going to a contender and having a significant first or second threat role on a team. I just don't see that for him. He's going to have to choose the money or the role. And to me, if I'm him, I would just stay in Washington, to be honest with you. And I think Jordan Poole, if he balls out, they'll be on must-see TV. They'll be must-watch, maybe on a social media wave, not necessarily on national television, but on the social media secondary market, Twitter and stuff like that, TikTok. That's who the Wizards can be, and he can be like a social media star with Jordan Poole, and transcend in other ways, similar to what's that guy in Philadelphia's name, who pretty much goes everywhere James Harden goes, the shoe guy. I see his face, but I can't think of his name. But he can be kind of find his own gimmick, his own lane. I think that's who he can be, from a fashion sense. So, Kuzma will be interesting. One notable name that I have not brought up, James Harden. I know we keep hearing, is it Houston, is it Philly? If James Harden really wants to win a ring, be in a big market, and carve out and still be a brand, I think one wild horse team that he should think about is the Lakers. The Lakers or the Clippers. If he goes to the Lakers, takes a little bit less money, you know what I mean? He went to Audubon. It would be a great feel-good story. From those of you who've been in South LA, you understand the significance. He's truly an inspirational story. I think he's exactly what they need. He can be that point guardish, but at the same time play off ball and snap. He grew up, idolizing Kobe. It would be a great story for him, and I think even if he's got to take like 130 instead of 180 or 200 from the Sixers or something, it would be a lot better for him, to be honest with you, than going to Philly. You could tell it's cool, but it's not his ideal scenario. Houston is cool. The past looks better than what it really is, as the old adage goes. So it'll be interesting. Another guy, Kyrie. Kyrie was talking about during his religious crusade, he was talking a lot about, it got to a point where, he was contemplating retirement. If I'm not mistaken, during the CBA agreement, if a player retires, he's no longer going to get paid. And if he's mentioning retirement at the table with Joe Tsai and the rest of the NBA, it tells me money doesn't mean that much. If he goes back to Dallas, signs that $200 million deal, I just don't see him fulfilling that deal. I feel like it's going to end bad and disastrous. Not all money's good money. And so for me, in my opinion, it would be in his best interest to go take a fraction of the money, go play with the Lakers, and go ahead and make sure that he's able to play some meaningful games. Because if he ends up going in Dallas, the money, you're just playing for money, and we all know, it's not everything. And we got enough of a sample size to realize that basically they're only putting up with you because of the mistake they made with Brunson. And if I'm Kyrie, yeah, 200 million, no state tax, yeah, that's all great and all, but you're not going to be able to complete that deal. You're going to be so miserable unless you take the money and you strong arm your way. But that'll pretty much be the death of his reputation in the league if it's not hitting already. So that is my around the globe or around the United States tour of free agency. It'll be interesting. We'll definitely recap when we get more. In the meantime, between time, Global out.